I'm OllieBeanz from iFreaking Love This, and today we're going to be reviewing the Thrustmaster T16000M FCS HOTAS. I have over 4,000 hours logged in the Space Sim Elite Dangerous, let alone all the other games I play that require a HOTAS setup like Microsoft Flight Simulator, Star Citizen, War Thunder. Right now I own... Let me get this bad boy over here because she is plugged in. This is the throttle for the T16000M FCS HOTAS. And then here's my joystick for the T16000 FCS HOTAS. T16000M FCS HOTAS. I also own the T-Flight HOTAS by Thrustmaster, and this does come apart. This is really a good budget set. I also own the X52, as well as the X56. Now, I also own a Logitech 3D Pro, which is just a joystick that has a little kind of throttle knob on the bottom of it. I tried to pull it up for this video, but I couldn't find it. The T16000M FCS HOTAS is definitely my favorite of the bunch. This isn't going to be a comparison video, but I will be referencing some of the other HOTAS sets I own when I'm pointing out features or specifications. So let's get right into the Thrustmaster T16000M FCS HOTAS review. Alright, let's get right into what I love about the T16000M FCS HOTAS. I'm just going to call it the T16000M for the duration of this review, because the full thing's a mouthful. And so one thing is the Hall effect sensors that it uses in the joystick specifically. And that uses HART, which is Hall effect accurate technology. And that's 16-bit resolution. So that means it's 16,000 by 16,000 values across the axes. Now, this is the exact same tech that's used in the much more expensive Thrustmaster Warthog, which is, really that top tier outside of, companies like Verpil. It also uses magnets in the joystick with the Hall sensors there. And so what that does is make sure there's no friction there, which really leads to the longevity of the joystick. And that's why it's outlasted all the other HOTASes I showed you at the beginning of the video. The joystick's also fully ambidextrous, meaning you can move the handrests to different sides, so that way it's good for right-handed as well as left-handed users. And what's really made the T16000M joystick by itself one of the most popular joystick for dual joystick setups. That's not how I use it personally. The joystick alone also has 16 action buttons that have little braille-like bumps on them, and that allows you to really sense where those buttons are without needing to take your head out of the game. There's also 4 independent axes, including the twist rudder, which is the Z axis on the stick. There's a multi-directional hat switch on the top of the joystick, and that allows for if you want to do POV. So, for example, you want to look around your cockpit and you don't have VR or you don't have a head tracker, you can use that 8-point to actually get a good look all around the ship without being limited to 4 axes. It has a nice ergonomic design, right? It really feels good in the hand. It's smaller. You can see from the joysticks I showed you, or the HOTASes I showed you, that the T16000M, both in the joystick and the throttle, are much smaller than especially the X56. But this actually makes it a lot more comfortable to use. I don't have the largest hands out there, and so for me, it's an ideal size. The wide handrest also really adds to that comfort, so that way you're not holding up your hand when you're not moving the joystick actively. You actually have somewhere to rest it, and that really helps for long nights of playing. Despite being small and looking a little bit more toy-like than things like the X52 and especially the X56, it does have a significantly weighted base, so it's not going to move around a lot on you. Onto the throttle of the T16000M. The throttle is another great piece of kit within this HOTAS set. The throttle alone has 14 actionable buttons. It has a 8-way point of view hat switch, similar to what's on the top of the joystick. It also has 2 4-way hat switches on the throttle underneath that 8-way. And then it also has an analog joystick for at the front end of the throttle, which will be the back when you're using it, where your fingers rest. And I use that for my thrusters in Elite Dangerous. On the back of the TWCS, which is what Thrustmaster calls the throttle in the FCS HOTAS kit, It has a RJ12 on the back where the rudder pedals connect, and the rudder pedals are great for games like Microsoft Flight Simulator, but personally for games like Elite Dangerous, they're not as responsive as using the Z-axis. I personally don't use it that often. I haven't included this in this video because it's not really a fair comparison to the rest of the HOTASes that don't come with a rudder option. The smart technology, or the rails that are used in the TWCS throttle, which again is the throttle that comes with the FCS HOTAS set, slides on these two rails, right? And it's a linear slide, right? That's probably my only qualm about this throttle, is that it doesn't have the arc like the X56 does, and it doesn't have any detents like the X52 does. And so there is a mod that you can 3D print, and I'll include that link below as well, and I'll get into that more in a little bit later, where you can add a magnetic detent, which works great for me. I love having that mod in there. So the throttle has plenty of buttons, great motion, great durability, a great weighted base, and lots of buttons and axes for all your bindings, especially for those space sims that really require a lot of axes for that 6 degrees of freedom. Let's talk about the durability of the T16000M set. I've had my set for about over 3 years now, and I haven't had any issues with it, besides needing to lube up the throttle with some Neogel 767A, and this is really the best stuff I've found so far. It's safe on the plastic parts as well as the metal parts, which is important when you're looking for some lubrication for that throttle, especially on those slides, on those rails, and I'll put a link down to this in the description below. And some cleaning on the inside and outside, I haven't had any issues. It's been going strong. As opposed to with the X52 and the X56, I've had to RMA those each a couple of times. Now, the ones I have now are in working order, and I do think that some of that was due to Mad Catz producing them at the time, and I think some of those issues are fixed with the Logitech editions now. I still trust the Thrustmaster name much more so, especially because I haven't had to do anything. I've had to call them for support. I haven't had to send it back to get a new one, but Thrustmaster does have great support, so if you do have any issues with yours, you know, there's always going to be some unlucky ones. They will take care of you. Let's talk about that center detent again, or lack thereof. Right? I'm going to link below to prusaprinters.org, and there's a link there where for any of you guys that have 3D printers, or there's plenty of places where you can outsource that stuff, you can get a two-sided, two parts mod that goes inside the joystick, and it's really easy to install. And what that adds, it adds one magnet on each part that when they come together creates a slight center detent there. And of course, depending on the strength of the magnets that you choose to put in there, you can adjust that to your needs as well. And that's really the only negative I have about this setup, is the lack of a center detent, and this mod is a quick, cheap, and easy way to fix that. Another thing I love about the T16000M set is that they're independent of each other, right? Each one has its own dedicated USB cable, similar to the X56. And so what this allows you to do is, say you really like the throttle, but you want to upgrade to a Warthog or a Virpil or any of those really, you know, super expensive flight sim joysticks, you can do that. With the X52 or the T-Flight, you can't. And so this flexibility really is another great reason to love them. I'm going to take a moment to talk about really what the most important thing is in a HOTAS setup is how it feels when you're using it in game, right? When I was using the X52 and the X56 and the T-Flight even, I wasn't landing shots as consistently, especially in Elite Dangerous, especially with things like fixed weapons like plasma accelerators. With the T16000M, even though it did take some adjustments to get used to, you know, on the sensitivity and things of that nature, it was a much more fluid motion. I could more accurately hit shots, and I think that's because of the type of sensors that the T16000M uses. Again, it's the same sensors that are in that greatly more expensive Warthog setup. So you're going to have that same type of responsiveness in the joystick itself, which is clutch for hitting shots with fixed weapons in games like Elite. In conclusion, the Thrustmaster T16000M FCS HOTAS is one on the list of things I freaking love as compared to the rest of the HOTASes that I showed you, because of durability, and performance. I've put this thing through its paces, like I said, with over 4,000 hours in Elite Dangerous alone, and it's never let me down. The X52 and the X56 are still great choices, especially now that Logitech has started producing them. And the X52 is actually what the ship models in-game for Elite Dangerous are based off of, the actual controls within the ship, I should say, not the ship models. And the X56 is a great looking set. It feels sturdy and it feels great in your hand. But I've got to put the win to the T16000M FCS HOTAS by Thrustmaster because of durability and functionality. I'm going to be including links to the Thrustmaster T16000M FCS HOTAS set with the rudder pedals, because it's worth it for the price that you pay to get the pedals on top to be able to use them, in the links down below. I'm also going to put links to all the other HOTASes that I showed you at the beginning of the video, as well as that Nio gel I used to keep the throttle nice and loose. I'm also going to be posting a link down below to my Twitch channel. I'm OllieBeanz on Twitch. I stream 3 times a week on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Best thing to do is just give it a follow. Again, I'm going to throw that link down below and you'll be notified of when I go live. Feel free to come by and ask me any questions about the videos that I do, or just bust my while I game. If you found this video helpful and it made you make a decision on whether to get or not get the T16000M, I'd appreciate a like on the video, maybe even hit that subscribe and that bell to be notified of when I get new content. I'm OllieBeanz from iFreaking Love This. I'll see you in the next video. Be good to each other.